Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another video on Marvel's Ultimate Alliance 3. Last Friday, we had a little bit of a look at the danger rooms, and I had mentioned in that video that there are 6 different difficulties. Of course, on Friday we looked at the alpha level, and there are variations of difficulties in these rooms throughout the different levels. So today, we will be looking at the training level beta. And this definitely changes things up a little bit, and you'll see some of the unprecedented changes that tend to happen with this type of difficulty increase as we get a little bit later into the video. Now, this is similar to the previous sections that we've seen where there are still 3 different rooms that we will need to progress through, and I will kind of walk through a couple of the differences here, and you'll also see a couple of mistakes that I made that you can hopefully avoid making in your own danger room runs. So here we are just waiting for the level to load up so we can jump into round 1 where we will find ourselves in the Avengers Tower, similar to what we saw in last week's episode on Monday with a couple of minor tweaks. You'll see here that this particular iteration of the danger room starts off with the opponents and teammates dealing increased damage on, well, both of us. And really what we're looking to do is get through to the final area, or the living room quarters, as quickly as we can. I do try to keep an eye on the objectives over here on the right hand side of the screen to detonate those or take advantage of those as quickly as we can. And this one just involved us picking up the buttons or the throwable objects as quickly as we can. And now we just need to progress through into the next section, which will involve defeating 2 powerful enemies. We walked by a couple of them there, but luckily I knew that there were a few more up here at this point as well. So we'll throw in a couple of our our abilities there to take out our opponents, and the other guy that we're looking for had disappeared backwards into this hallway. So now we are inflicting burn level 2 and poison level 3 on our opponents, and I don't see what we did to inflict the decreased defense level 3, but we did end up doing that, I suppose, so that worked. Here, we'll just layer into this danger room hazard so it's no longer affecting our gameplay, and then I will set up my gravity surge to pull all of my opponents into this center arena and be free to take out this terminal. Now, something I did not notice or did not anticipate is this objective that's currently over on the right-hand side. Apparently, using that terminal to take down the opponents does count as using basic attacks, because 2 of them went down, and that allowed for us to get the objective almost immediately. Just the last 10% left in this challenge, and that is going to involve confronting the different opponents in this section of the danger room, and I tend to blitz through this a little bit quicker just because of my background in speedrunning this game. But it has proved to be efficient and works fairly well, though I can't necessarily say that for some of our later segments, as we will see later. A couple of abilities here. We will be just about finished with this room, and employing some of our heavy attacks, we will be able to finalize our attacks against our opponents before that objective is taken into effect and transitions us into the second phase of this gauntlet. Now, you'll see that with any gauntlet that you win, and you do need to win the gauntlet in order to move by when you're playing in the offline variant of the run, but you're given the options of buffing up your team, and I always opt for the extreme ability enhancements when and wherever I can. This section is also one that's pretty similar, but it's a common one that tends to pop up within these danger rooms of defeating 200 enemies. So in addition to getting through those 200 enemies as quickly as you can, you will want to watch for any opportunities that you can take advantage of to inflict the abilities or the ability efficiency of the opponents that you're taking the attacks from. Using abilities works pretty well for us. We'll just be able to layer into our opponents a little more efficiently. And do keep in mind that anytime you use a synergy attack, you will end up triggering your abilities twice, once for the hero that you are controlling and once for whichever other team member detonates that as a part of the synergy attack. Here, you'll see that we have to use our synergy attacks again, so I will swap onto a teammate that allows me to use synergies. This time doesn't go up by 2 because it is a synergy targeted objective rather than an ability targeted objective. But with one final adamantium uppercut there, we have finished our objective there. And this is where things start to fall apart a little bit with the run that we're doing. As I detonate my extreme attacks, we do end up getting an extreme attack, or a danger room challenge, I guess I should say, inflicted, which involves us jumping 7 times to inflict the EP drain. And unfortunately, because I had my entire team running their extreme attack during that entire time, I was unable to use the jump enough times before the computer did in order to inflict that detriment to my opponent. It's not the end of the world though, because as you can see, we are right there at the end, and we were able to finish that out by detonating our extreme attacks as my game starts to drop a couple of frames there. Now, something important to note is you do not carry over your extreme attack charge into the next section, so I was not out any the worse for wear for detonating those attacks. Now, this is the section that things got a little bit hairier, and we'll be able to see in retrospect as to why this section fell apart a little bit more for me. I didn't have a whole lot of favorable options there, but because I'm using Wolverine, piercing damage seemed to be one of the better options for me in that iteration there. But here we will be running through the catacomb section of Wakanda, of the Wakandan story map here. And this is where the gauntlet tender ran a little bit rough for me, but we'll talk about what you can do to avoid that, as well as what actually went wrong, or what actually I did wrong here to have a less than favorable experience. Now, initially here, you'll see that I have tried to target onto using my using Thanos to leap forward, and we did pretty well initially off the start here, using some of our basic attacks as indicated there, and jumping through a lot of these sections to get closer to the end and progress through as quickly as we can. Now, what I think was probably the problem here is I was unable to defeat 2 powerful enemies. And that means that there is a reflection protocol, which I take to understand that any damage that you deal will inflict damage back to yourself. And that was not something that I really cared for because, well, it's not great. We also ended up missing out on the opportunity to take out some opponents, which was not great. And here, we actually end up taking a lot of damage due to a damage reduction, or a defense reduction 3. And you see that Thanos Infinite goes down, leaving my entire team, who was inflicted with slowness, pretty far back behind. Now, something important to remember about this is your team has reduction in speed when on the ground. So if you are able to jump or fly, you will be able to get around that and kind of ignore that detriment as you progress through. And this is where everything kind of unravels. I tend to just focus on taking out the hazards that are needed to finish things out. And because I'm stuck in the cloud of green, I experience what's called a fatal error, where all of my teammates go down. Thankfully, this does not mean the end of the run, as the entire team will be revived if you are patient enough for it. And because I am still relatively far ahead of my opponents, I didn't feel the need to back out and try that again. So even though that's a less than ideal circumstance, and it does give you a 10-second buffer, we did end up being okay. And I did think that this room was going to progress a little bit further, but it turns out that all the opponents that we were needing to take out are right here in the center. It was probably not my finest choice to draw in all of the opponents here into the middle, but we were able to manage just fine after throwing out a couple of our extreme attacks to take them out. So hopefully you learned a little bit from my run and from my mistakes here, and that you can use that to your advantage when taking on your own danger rooms. There are some significant changes to danger rooms as you get up into the higher levels, which we will be discussing in some of our future episodes here. But I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this series, as I do have a lot of really good projects that I'm currently working on that I hope that you will find enjoyable and informative. So thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care.